Good morning, everybody. I am Dr. Nitin Doshi, Professor in Urology with teaching experience of 25 years, working as consultant neurosurgeon in Panvel. Today we will discuss simple orchidectomy. Orchidectomy, that is removal of testicle. It is of two types, namely simple orchidectomy and radical orchidectomy. Radical orchidectomy is the type of orchidectomy done in case of primary testicular tumor. Simple orchidectomy is type of orchidectomy done in case of non-malignant condition of testes. Indications of simple orchidectomy are 1. Non-viable testes secondary to torsion testes, where due to torsion testes there is ischemic necrosis, that is infarction of testes. When there is superadded infection or putrefaction on this infarcted necrotic testicular parenchyma, it results into gangrene, and in case of torsion testes it's a weight type of gangrene. So removal of the gangrenous organ is important from point of view of saving the life, as well as because of release of the sperm there may be affection of even opposite side of testicle, and hence to save the opposite testicle, removal of this non-viable testicle is important. The torsion testis is more common seen in the adolescents. Second indication, non-viable testes due to pyocele, where the florid infection has extended to involve even testes badly. Third, that is small atrophic testes in case of unilateral undescended testes, where undescended testes remain away from the cooler scrotum, that is in the abdomen, for a longer time, resulting into non-viable or atrophic testes. Next, that is a part of first line of hormonal therapy in case of advanced or metastatic cancer prostate, which is the most common indication for simple orchidectomy. So here it is a surgical castration so as to remove 95% source of testosterone. So here it is not a single orchidectomy, bilateral orchidectomy, so as to remove the testicular source of testosterone, which is almost 95%. Next indication, in elderly patient with large or recurrent indirect hernia, then after identification, isolation and ligation of the sac, that is herniatomy, in order to prevent the recurrence of the hernia, obliterate the internal ring, and the obliteration of the internal ring is possible only after orchidectomy. And so the indication in case of the large and recurrent hernia in case of elderly people, you can do the simple orchidectomy. Next indication of simple orchidectomy is irreparable damage to testes following severe testicular parenchyma. Next indication, severe uncontrollable testalgia following epidermolysis. Now relevant anatomy. Layers of the scrotum are: the first layer of scrotum is skin, which is continuation of skin of anterior abdominal wall. Second layer of scrotum is dartos, which is continuation of the superficial fascia of anterior abdominal wall. The third layer of the scrotum is the external spermatic fascia, which is the continuation of external oblique aponeurosis of anterior abdominal wall. Fourth layer is the cremasteric fascia, which is derived from the internal oblique and transversus abdominis of anterior abdominal wall. And the fifth layer or the innermost layer of the scrotum is internal spermatic fascia, which is derived from the fascia transversalis of anterior abdominal wall. The muscle dartos sends a midline septum so as to divide scrotum into two compartments so that each compartment is for one testicle. This scrotum is one of the male external genital organ, and it is like a sac or bag or pouch of skin with its various fasciae containing male gonad testes, epididymis and lower part of spermatic cord. Constituents of spermatic cord are vas, artery to vas, testicular artery, that is gonadal artery, which is also called as internal spermatic artery, then cremasteric artery or external spermatic artery, pampaniform plexus, genital branch of genitofemoral nerve, testicular plexus, which is a sympathetic plexus, then sympathetic plexus around the vas, then lymphatics of testes and epididymis, fibrofatty areolar tissue, and remains of processus vaginalis. The upper part of processus vaginalis, that is a fold of embryonic peritoneum, is processus vaginalis, gets obliterated at the level of internal ring after the descent of testes, and the part which is at upper end is obliterated, but the lower part remains patent, and that is tunica vaginalis, which is one of the covering of testicle. And the part of tunica vaginalis and part of the obliterated processus vaginalis, remaining part which is in between is obliterated to form a cord-like structure. So obliteration at the internal ring, remaining some part of patency in relation to testicle to form tunica vaginalis, and part of the processus vaginalis in between these 2 points gets obliterated to form a cord-like structure. Now the tunics or coverings of spermatic cord. Outermost is external spermatic fascia derived from external oblique muscle. Then the cremasteric fascia, which is made up of the loops of cremasteric muscle which are connected to each other by areolar tissue and is derived from internal oblique and transversus abdominis. And the innermost layer of the spermatic cord is internal spermatic fascia, which is derived from fascia transversalis of anterior abdominal wall. This spermatic cord suspends male gonad testes in scrotum. Entire testes, that is testicular parenchyma, is surrounded by thick connective tissue capsule called tunica albuginea. Tunica albuginea is in turn covered by tunica vaginalis, which is a double-layered serous sac. Tunica vaginalis is made up of 2 layers, inner visceral, which lines tunica albuginea, and outer parietal, which lines inner layer of scrotum. This visceral and parietal layer are separated by each other by few cc of serous fluid. And so whenever you are doing simple orchidectomy or testicular biopsy or orchiopexy and you are opening tunica vaginalis, there is draining of this few cc of serous fluid present between visceral and parietal layer of tunica vaginalis. Tunica vaginalis, as we have seen, is derived from embryonic peritoneum called processus vaginalis. Tunica vaginalis covers tunica albuginea almost completely except posteriorly, where tunica vaginalis is thickened to form mediastinum testes. It is through this mediastinum testes that arteries, veins, lymphatics or nerves leave or enter testes, and thus mediastinum testes acts like hilum of the testes. Testes has rich nerve supply through autonomic innervation. In embryonic life, testes develop from the abdominal cavity. In embryonic life, testes develops from the gonadal ridge in the abdominal cavity, retroperitoneally in the lumbar region, and since it develops in the abdominal cavity in the lumbar region, it derives its nerve supply also from abdominal segment, and that is T10. And so the sympathetic nerve arising from T10 segment of the spinal cord supplies the innervation to testicle. These nerve course along the side of gonadal vessels, that is testicular artery and pemmiform plexus, and is carried in spermatic cord. This distribution of nerve supply to testes is very important when one is performing the orchidectomy in local anesthesia, because blocking these nerves properly so as to prevent vasovagal attack and severe pain should be avoided. Orchidectomy can be performed under local anesthesia or spinal anesthesia or general anesthesia. If performed under local anesthesia, then spermatic cords on both sides should be infiltrated with 10 to 15 ml of 1 to 2% lignocaine. So now here we are considering that it is the orchidectomy for the purpose of hormonal treatment, that is surgical castration, and that's why both the inguinal spermatic cord at the neck of the scrotum should be blocked. When it is unilateral orchidectomy, both spermatic cords need not be blocked. But the commonest indication of simple orchidectomy is the surgical castration, where both the testicles have to be removed, and hence both the spermatic cords have to be blocked by the local anesthesia. The side on which spermatic cord is to be infiltrated, on that side pull the testes down so as to relax the cremasteric muscle. Now grasp the cord, that is spermatic cord, with left hand at the neck of the scrotum by placing thumb in front and index finger behind it. Infiltrate the cord with 1% lignocaine without adrenaline. In addition to spermatic cord, even the scrotal wall and the dartos muscle at the site of incision is to be infiltrated with about 5 to 7 ml of lignocaine. Incision can be transverse or it can be vertical. If vertical, it is 5 cm long incision in the midline along the scrotal raphe in lower half of the scrotum. Local anesthesia takes some time to act, so test for testing with the tooth forceps that the sensations have reduced, the patient is not getting pain, and so once the anesthesia has acted, grasp the testicle with fingers and thumb so as to stretch the skin over testes. Now make a transverse incision on scrotum by avoiding scrotal vessels. The incision is deepened to cut underlying dartos muscle. In the dartos muscle there are multiple small blood vessels which may bleed, and so meticulous hemostasis of these small bleeding vessels present in the dartos muscle is very important so as to prevent the formation of scrotal hematoma at later date. The gubernaculum plays important role during the descent of testes in intrauterine life. Gubernaculum is the ridge of mesenchymal tissue extending from the genital ridge through a gap in the anterior abdominal wall to the genital swelling in embryonic life, that is in the intrauterine life. During postnatal life, the genital ridge develops into male gonad testes. In postnatal life means during the embryogenesis, all these structures, that is genital ridge, develops into testes. The gap in the anterior abdominal wall develops into inguinal canal, and the genital swelling during embryogenesis develops into scrotum. So whatever is the gubernaculum which has helped, some part remains even in the postnatal life. As a result, the origin of the embryo during the embryogenesis, the mesenchymal tissue, that is gubernaculum, is extending from the lower end of the genital ridge to the genital swelling, which will form the bottom of the scrotum. As a result, in the postnatal life, this gubernaculum, which is a remnant, remains as the tissue or the ridge of tissue extending from the lower pole of the testes to the bottom of the scrotum. And so during the orchiectomy, so as to deliver the testes freely, these remnants of the gubernaculum has to be coagulated and cut from the lower pole of the testes to the scrotum. Now after incising the scrotal layers, that is, we have incised the skin, then the dartos, then external spermatic fascia, cremasteric fascia, internal spermatic fascia, and then there will be covering of the testes, and that is tunica vaginalis, which is consisting of inner visceral and parietal, and in between the two there will be few cc of serous fluid. So when this thin sac is excised or incised, there will be escape of this serous fluid, and after that there will be exposure of the tunica albuginea. So we have incised the scrotal layers, we have relieved the testes from its attachment to the bottom of the scrotum. Now with the blunt dissection, these testes can be separated within different layers of the scrotum, and gradually we reach to the spermatic cord. The spermatic cord is bulky. This spermatic cord contains the vessels, particularly testicular artery, cremasteric artery, artery to vas. So, in order that this bulky tissue may slip in one ligature, by the blunt dissection, this spermatic cord is split with the artery forceps into two parts, and then the coccus clamp or the pedicle clamps are applied, and then it is ligated as well as by the free tie as well as on needle, that is doubly ligation. And this is important because in case the slippage of the instrument, that is clamp, or the slippage of the free tie, then there can be the bleeding from the testicular artery. And if there is the ligation of the cord is at higher level, then it may retract suddenly at a higher level, which is retroperitoneum, that is in inaccessible site. And if such things we expect, then to control the bleeding, one may have to extend the incision from the scrotum to the inguinal region, expose the retracted spermatic cord in the retroperitoneum where the bleeding is hidden, identify the cord and then ligate. But in order to prevent this, first doubly ligation, free tie as well as on needle, and try to cut the spermatic cord as slow as possible, that is as near as the testicle, so that even if there is bleeding after retraction of the testicular artery, this bleeding cord part can be identified, isolated, and can be immediately controlled by suture ligature or free tie. So the important point is doubly ligation. The cord should be split into two structures. The whatever is that should be ligated doubly on needle as well as free tie, and try to cut the spermatic cord near the testicle so that it will not retract into high hidden retroperitoneal region. After the removal of the testicle, one has to see the hemostasis. This is because there will be multiple tiny blood vessels from multiple loose scrotal layers. Important one is the dartos, and so we'll have to obliterate all the loose, whatever is the space which is created, cavity which is created, and so all these loose scrotal layers may bleed or ooze. And so taking deep stitches so as to obliterate the space and the cavity is important. After the closure of this scrotal layers with 10 Vicryl or chromic catgut, then one has to see for the hemostasis in the scrotal layers because there are multiple tiny scrotal blood vessels which may bleed, and then it can be troublesome because it may result into the scrotal hematoma. This can be prevented even by placement of corrugated drain before the closure of the wound. Drain, if it is inserted, should be removed after 2 to 3 days. In case, in spite of taking deep stitches in the scrotal layers, proper hemostasis in the dartos, if hematoma forms and it is increasingly distressing, in that case one may require drainage because superadded infection will result into scrotal abscess. Dartos should be closed by continuous absorbable suture after the closure of all these scrotal layers with the again continuous 10 Vicryl or 10 chromic catgut by dip stitches, and then the compression dressing is given. So we have seen that the commonest indication in adult patient is surgical castration, which is the first line of hormonal treatment in the diagnosed case of advanced cancer prostate or metastatic cancer prostate. So usually it is performed under local anesthesia because cancer prostate is an elderly person, may have various comorbidities which may make patient unfit for spinal or general anesthesia. Thus, by giving local anesthesia, one can avoid untoward complications and effects of general anesthesia. Since it is performed under general anesthesia, patient can start taking orally liquids and soft diet to full diet immediately, and patient can be discharged from the hospital on the same day. Thus, it becomes a what is called as daycare procedure, so the cost to the patient will be lesser. The drugs which are commonly used for local anesthesia is the 1% or 2% plain lignocaine or xylocaine and 0.5% sensorcaine or bupivacaine. The maximum dose of commonly used 2% xylocaine without adrenaline is 5 to 7 mg per kg, where 1 cc of 2% lignocaine is equal to 20 mg of lignocaine, while the dose of the 5.5% sensorcaine is 2 mg per kg, where the 1 cc of 0.5% sensorcaine contains 5 mg of sensorcaine or bupivacaine. In case of local or anesthesia for orchidectomy, actually this is a type of infiltration type, even causes nerve block. While giving the local anesthesia, we are blocking the nerves at the lower end of the spermatic cord, so the sympathetic nerve plexus around supplying the testicle as well as vas will be blocked. First, explain the procedure of giving local anesthesia to the patient. After parts are prepared, painted and draped, initially at the site of the injection, that is at the neck of the scrotum, where the spermatic cord, spermatic cord is to be blocked. At that site, make a small will by giving small amount of 1% or 2% plain lignocaine. Similarly, inject small amount of local anesthesia along the line of incision so as to make a will, and through this will then you inject the local anesthesia at the surface level, that is along the skin, so that the cutaneous nerves which are carrying the main pain sensation are blocked. Then the anesthetic drug is injected into deeper layers, and while injecting the local anesthesia in the deeper tissues or even at subdermal level, the needle should move, and before injecting withdraw to see that the needle is not in the vessel. Since it takes some time to act, so the time is required, and so you have to wait for some time to act the local anesthetic. Also, since there is a chance of hypersensitivity or allergic response, so you can test the local anesthetic drug prior to giving and keep all the drugs which are required for the anaphylaxis or allergic response, particularly the nasal oxygen, adrenaline, efcorlin, surabica, deriphyllin, aminophylline ready. And being the surgery which is performed under local anesthesia on elderly person, better to supplement 100% oxygen by mask when the surgery is being performed. Now we'll see the extension of the same topic, and that is the subcapsular orchidectomy. Medical or surgical castration is the first line of hormonal therapy in case of advanced or metastatic cancer prostate. This is because castration removes 95% of source of testosterone, but the orchidectomy, that is the surgical castration, it can be of two types, and that is simple orchidectomy or subcapsular orchidectomy. Surgical castration is safe, reliable, effective, cost effective, that is economical, particularly if the life expectancy of the patient is more than 3 months. This is because when the life expectancy is longer, patient will require to give repeated depot injections of GnRH agonist or GnRH antagonist, which is a form of medical castration or pharmacological or chemical castration. But they are costly, and so if the patient's life expectancy is longer, then the surgical castration is extremely economical. Now, when the patient is undergoing the medical castration, the patient not only have to give repeated injection but requires even the repeated monitoring of the serum PSA to see whether the PSA has started rising, and so the patient requires repeated follow-ups, repeated investigation, more cost, and so the surgical castration is considered as standard of care as in today. Surgical castration achieves castrate level of blood very fast within average of 8.3 hours, and so when it is a emergency like impending cord compression, impending renal failure because of obstruction of both ureters by retroperitoneal lymph nodes, or impending fracture because of meds, then the surgical castration has to be performed as early as possible, and till date the surgical castration is the standard of care. However, the complications of the surgical castration is permanent with physical trauma and psychological trauma. So, though the surgical castration is standard of care for locally advanced say prostate and metastatic cancer prostate, psychological trauma can be handled by the subcapsular orchidectomy, that is as per the proponents of the subcapsular orchidectomy. Psychological trauma is due to feeling of permanent loss of manhood due to loss of testicular sensation. The proponents of subcapsular orchidectomy feels that removal of only testicular parenchyma from the tunica albuginea and preserving the tunica albuginea and then suturing back this preserved tunica albuginea can give patient testicular sensation. Also, we have seen that it is on the posterior aspect of tunica albuginea, this thickening to form mediastinum testis, through which the arteries, veins, nerves and lymphatics enter or leave the testes. So the testicular sensation is carried by the nerves which enter through the mediastinum, which is the thickened part of tunica albuginea. So if the tunica albuginea is preserved, even the testicular sensation will be preserved. That is as per the proponents of the subcapsular orchidectomy. So, Proponents feel that only removal of the parenchyma is sufficient, but many urologists is not in favor of subcapsular orchidectomy because there is always a risk of retaining back of at least some amount of testicular parenchyma which we may not be able to see. How much meticulous you are, some parenchyma may remain back, and this residual testicular parenchyma will then keep on secreting hormone testosterone. Whatever, whether it is right or wrong, but the technique of subcapsular orchidectomy. So whether we have to go ahead with subcapsular orchidectomy or the simple orchidectomy, it's one's opinion. But the technique of subcapsular orchidectomy, incision is vertical incision about 3 to 4 centimeter long. It can be along the median raphe or pararaphe incision. After skin incision, we have to cut the same scrotal layers, that is dartos, external spermatic fascia, cremastic fascia, internal spermatic fascia, and then there will be covering of the testes and tunica vaginalis. Tunica vaginalis, as we have seen, is having inner visceral and parietal layer, and between the two layers is few cc of the serous fluid which will be drained once you incise the tunica vaginalis. Because of the opening of tunica vaginalis, tunica albuginea is exposed. Then on this tunica albuginea, take 2 to 3 centimeter long incision, and then with the principle of squeezing testes and blunt dissection, with the help of gauze piece, removal of the testicular parenchyma. So the assistant will be squeezing the testicle so that the whatever is the inside tunica albuginea, through that all the parenchyma will start protruding, which will be collected on the gauze piece, and the blunt dissection will be done with the gauze piece. And then in order to prevent any residual parenchyma, according to proponents of the subcapsular orchidectomy, then what one can do, one can extend the incision, revert back the tunica albuginea, see if there is any residual parenchyma, and then if there is no residual parenchyma, then proper hemostasis at mediastinum testis, through which the testicular artery and vein enters, is important. And so for this, the two edges of incised tunica albuginea are sutured with 3/0 vicryl continuous interlocking. While taking the sutures, you can take deep stitches so as to obliterate the cavity and arrest bleeding. Now with the Alice forceps now, sutured tunica is then deposited back in the scrotal cavity so as to give the appearance of testes. Procedure is repeated on the other side, and wound is closed in layers with or without corrugated drain, and compression dressing is given. Thank you very much.